You are sitting there, scrolling, searching, feeling that familiar knot in your stomach that tells you there has to be more than this. You have read the books, you have watched the videos, you have listened to the podcasts where people in expensive suits talk about compound interest like it is a religion. And yet, here you are, still feeling the weight of 100 missed opportunities pressing down on your chest. The holy grail of investing is not a secret spreadsheet. It is not a ticker symbol whispered in private forums, and it is certainly not the cold, mathematical illusion of certainty sold to you by people who have never had to choose between paying the electricity bill and putting food on the table. You have been looking for a system, a code, a hidden door, but the Grail has been staring back at you in the mirror every single morning, exhausted, unshaven, and terrified. The real investment, the one that yields returns so astronomical they would make a hedge fund manager weep, is the investment in the one asset the market cannot price, the one asset that cannot be diluted, stolen, or taxed into oblivion. That asset is the version of yourself you are too afraid to build because building him requires walking directly into the fire of your own inadequacy. You feel it right now, don't you? The restless energy, the quiet voice that whispers you are capable of so much more. The anger at the mediocrity that has wrapped itself around your life like a fog. This is not a conversation about money. This is a conversation about the architecture of your mind, the wiring of your habits, and the brutal, unglamorous, transformative work of becoming someone who attracts wealth because of who you are, not what you know. I want you to stop looking outside yourself for the next 10 minutes and turn your gaze inward, because the vault you have been trying to crack externally has been locked from the inside this entire time. Let's tear the walls down the architecture of internal poverty. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the cold floor, the negotiation begins. It is a subtle, almost silent dialogue that has run on a loop for so many years you no longer recognize it as a foreign invader. It feels like your own voice. This voice tells you that you are tired, that 5 more minutes won't hurt, that the market is rigged anyway, that people like you don't get the lucky breaks, that the rich get richer and the poor are designed to stay exactly where they are. This is the architecture of internal poverty, and it is a mansion you have built brick by brick with the mortar of procrastination and the scaffolding of self-doubt. You see, the holy grail of investing is not found in a brokerage account. It is found in the demolition of this internal structure. Every excuse is a load-bearing wall keeping the roof of your potential from caving in and letting the light flood through. You have developed a sophisticated relationship with self-sabotage, a high-level negotiation tactic where you convince yourself that playing small is a form of safety, that not trying is a hedge against failure. But let me tell you what real failure looks like. Real failure is lying on your deathbed surrounded by the ghosts of the person you could have become, the businesses you didn't start, the risks you didn't take, and the compound interest of regret that has been accruing silently in the account of your soul. Your brain, that magnificent 3-pound supercomputer housed in your skull, has been hijacked by a governor called the amygdala. When you think about making a bold move with your capital, when you consider quitting the soul-crushing job to start the venture that burns in your chest, your amygdala fires a warning shot that feels like physical pain. This is the ancient, reptilian circuitry designed to keep you safe from saber-toothed tigers, but it cannot tell the difference between a predator that wants to eat you and a spreadsheet that requires you to tighten your budget for 12 months. The science is brutally simple. Your brain craves homeostasis, a state of comfortable equilibrium, and it will sabotage your financial ascension to maintain it. When you see a dip in the market and panic sell, that is not a rational economic decision. That is a biological hijacking of your prefrontal cortex by a fear response that has been evolutionarily obsolete for 10,000 years. You are not a rational investor. You are a biological survival machine trying to play a long-term game with hardware designed for short-term threats. The shift begins when you realize that the feeling of fear is not a stop sign. It is a green light indicating you are moving toward growth. You need to understand the dopamine mechanics of your current financial situation. Dopamine is not, as popular culture suggests, the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of anticipation, the fuel of desire and drive. If you have trained your brain to receive cheap hits of dopamine from scrolling through social media, checking your portfolio balance obsessively every hour, or indulging in the fantasy of a lottery ticket, you have depleted your capacity for long-term strategic patience. Investing the Grail requires a deep reset of your dopaminergic baseline. You must starve the neural pathways that crave instant gratification and feast on the delayed gratification of process. When you sit down to analyze a company's fundamentals for 3 hours, the payoff is not a flash of green on a screen. The payoff is the slow, deep satisfaction of building competence. And when you realize that your internal state dictates your financial fate, you will stop chasing the external and start disciplining the internal. There is a toxic narrative you have inherited, a psychological program running in your mental operating system that equates wealth with moral corruption or believes that the world operates on a zero-sum ledger. You hear it in the background noise of envy when a friend buys a new car, and you mutter that the system is unfair. You feel it in the guilt that washes over you when you imagine yourself successful, as if your light would dim someone else's candle. This is the psychology of lack, and it is a repellent. The universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. And if you are being a person who vibrates with resentment, scarcity, and covert hostility toward those who have achieved what you desire, you are sending a command to your deep subconscious to reject the very thing you are seeking. Money is a coward. It runs from those who resent it and flows to those who respect its nature as a tool for expansion. You must excavate these limiting beliefs with the precision of an archaeologist, brushing away the dust of conditioning to find the raw, deserving, ambitious soul that was born before the world told you to be small. Let's look at the architecture of your daily habitat. You cannot, I repeat, you absolutely cannot build a holy grail mind in a garbage environment. If your desk is cluttered with the debris of indecision, if your car smells like old fast food wrappers, and your bedroom is a cave of scattered laundry, you are broadcasting a signal to your nervous system that chaos is acceptable. This is not about neat freak aesthetics. This is about the psychophysiological signal of order. When your external world is chaotic, your internal cognitive bandwidth is consumed, microthread by microthread, by the visual noise. You cannot hear the sophisticated, subtle signals of the market, nor the voice of your own intuition, when the volume of your environment is turned up to maximum static. Making your bed in the morning is not a silly cliché. It is a kinetic prayer of order, a first win that the basal ganglia records as a competency loop, setting the neurological stage for the next win and the next one after that. The investor who masters the Grail controls their sphere of influence with militant precision. And what about the social architecture you inhabit? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but worse than that, you are the emotional sponge of their unspoken fears. If your circle is a coalition of the cynical, the underpaid, and the perpetually complaining, you are breathing in second-hand psychological smoke every single day. You try to build a wealth mindset, but it is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole drilled in the bottom by the criticisms and crab bucket mentalities of people who have never taken a real risk in their lives. Setting a boundary with a family member who projects their financial trauma onto you is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of fiduciary duty to your own future. You must curate your inner circle with the rigorous diligence of a venture capitalist evaluating a founding team, because these people are shareholders in your consciousness, and they pay dividends of either energy or depletion directly into your cognitive reserve. You wait for permission. That is the silent killer. You wait for a mentor to tap you on the shoulder, for the market to look safe, for the economic clouds to part, for the media to declare it is safe to swim. This waiting is a trauma response to a childhood where you had to be good, quiet, and conforming to survive. But the great investors, the Grail carriers, Do not wait for the all-clear signal because they understand that the universe rewards the bold, not the perfect. Your hesitation is a leak in your potential portfolio. Every day you wait is a day the compounding curve of your skill acquisition is flatlined, and you are losing a fortune in the currency of neural adaptation. The shift happens in the moment you realize that someday is a disease that kills more dreams than failure ever has. Failure is a teacher. Waiting is a thief. You must confront the deep, unsettling truth that you are currently self-medicating. Perhaps not with substances, but with busyness, with video games, with the numbing glow of Netflix, with the cheap validation of digital likes. These are not relaxations. They are escape hatches from the pressure of creation. The holy grail of investing requires a state of flow, a deep immersion where time dilates and complexity unfolds like a rose. You cannot enter the flow state when your dopamine receptors are fried by algorithmic entertainment. When you close the laptop on your trading platform and immediately open a streaming service, you are burning the Library of Alexandria just to toast a marshmallow. You must raw dog reality for a period of time. Sit in the boredom. Let the withdrawal from cheap stimulation wash over you. Because on the other side of that detox is a clarity of mind that sees market patterns like a hawk spotting prey from 1,000 feet. Action is the only antidote. Not the action of a hero, not the massive, life-altering leap, but the micronized, unsexy, granular action of the next 5 minutes. You are paralyzed by the magnitude of the goal. You have imagined the penthouse, the portfolio, the philanthropic legacy, and it is so vast it crushes your current identity. You cannot leap from a low-income identity to a decamillionaire identity in one bound. You must bridge the gap through progressive overload. You must walk across the psychological tightrope by taking one step that feels uncomfortable but not fatal. Open the trading account. Read the first chapter of the annual report. Speak to the accountant. The Grail is not a distant chalice. It is the accumulation of 10,000 mundane, boring, disciplined decisions that nobody claps for, that nobody sees, and that compound into a life that everybody envies. Stop looking at the peak and look at your feet. What is the one microscopic step you will take right now? Not tomorrow, not after lunch, but right now. That proves you are no longer a victim of your own biology. Say this out loud. I am the architect of my internal world, and from this fortress, I build my external empire. The neurochemistry of the long game. Let me take you deeper into the wetware, into the gelatinous mass of neurons where the battle for your financial future is actually fought. You think you are making decisions based on logic, on earnings reports, on price-to-earnings ratios, but this is a comforting lie told by your left hemisphere to keep your ego intact. The truth is, you are a walking chemical soup, and the broth is either serving your portfolio or poisoning it. When you are staring at a candlestick chart screaming red, and your hand hovers over the sell button, that is not a strategic exit. That is a cortisol tsunami flooding your system. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and it is designed for one thing: to make you drop the bag and run from the threat. But in the modern investing landscape, the threat is not a lion. It is volatility, the very mechanism that creates the discount prices where fortunes are born. You must rewire the biological panic button so that the sight of a 10% market correction does not trigger a fight or flight response, but instead triggers a calm, predatory curiosity. You must train yourself, through repeated exposure and intentional breathing, to become an emotional countercyclical, buying when the caveman inside is screaming to sell, and holding when the dopamine junkie inside wants to gamble on a meme stock. The dual process theory of the brain reveals your internal adversary with stark clarity. You have System 1, the fast, automatic, intuitive engine that runs on heuristics and stereotypes. This is the part of you that sees a stock ticker mentioned on a social media forum and feels a hot flash of foam, the fear of missing out, that compels you to buy without reading a single regulatory filing. System 1 is efficient. It saves energy, but it is the portfolio killer. Then you have System 2, the slow, deliberate, analytical engine that requires effort, glucose, and focused attention. Reading a 50-page quarterly report cover to cover, is a System 2 marathon, and most people have let their System 2 muscles atrophy to the point of clinical obesity. The Holy Grail investor is not someone who has eliminated System 1. That is impossible. It is someone who has built a rigid, non-negotiable workflow of checklists and cooling-off periods that forces System 2 to interject before the mouse clicks "Confirm trade." You are not a logical being who has emotions. You are an emotional being who occasionally taps into logic, and the Grail demands you reverse that ratio. Let's talk about the ventral striatum, the reward center of your brain, and how it is sabotaging your asset allocation. Every time you check your portfolio value on your phone, you are spinning a roulette wheel in your nucleus accumbens. If the market is up, you get a ping of pleasure. If it is down, you get a pang of pain. This variable reinforcement schedule is the most addictive pattern known to behavioral psychology. It is the same mechanism that makes slot machines so dangerously compelling. By checking your balance obsessively, you are not staying informed. You are training your brain to become addicted to noise, mistaking volatility for risk, and trading your long-term vision for a short-term neurochemical fix. The Grail investor deletes the brokerage app from their phone. They check their balance quarterly or even annually, not because they are disengaged, but because they understand that the magic of compounding happens in the silent, dark, unobserved soil of time, and constantly digging up the seed to check the roots will kill the plant. You must protect your dopamine channels from the manipulation of fintech interfaces designed to make you overtrade. The concept of loss aversion is the single most expensive psychological tax you pay. The pain of losing $1 is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $1. This asymmetric fear is why you sell your winners too early and hold your losers until they go to zero, hopping for a break-even just to salvage your pride. Pride is the most expensive luxury you cannot afford. The market does not care about your break-even price. It cares about future discounted cash flows. You must neutralize the framing effect. When you see a position down 50%, your brain frames it as a loss relative to your purchase price. You need a mental reframe. The only question that matters is, if I had fresh cash today, would I buy this asset at this price? If the answer is no, you must harvest the remaining capital and move it to a better opportunity, regardless of how much the paper loss stings. Cutting a weed is not a loss. It is a reallocation to a higher-yielding seed. The anterior cingulate cortex is your error detection system. It fires when you make a mistake, creating that burning sensation of regret and self-criticism. For the amateur investor, this firing is a paralytic. It causes them to ruminate, to spiral, to declare themselves unlucky or stupid, and to retreat to cash. For the Grail investor, this neural signal is simply a data packet, a notification that a learning opportunity has arrived. You must shift your relationship with regret. The man who has never lost money in the market is the man who has never invested, and his failure is an absolute guarantee due to inflation. Your losses are your tuition for a degree that no Ivy League business school can grant. The visceral, embodied intelligence of risk management. Embrace the sting of the anterior cingulate cortex. Log the mistake in a journal without emotional adjectives. Extract the lesson, and place the next trade with a slightly more refined algorithm of wisdom. We cannot ignore the physiological impact of your posture and body language on your investment decisions. You are sitting at your computer, shoulders slumped, head forward, a posture of defeat. This closed chest position compresses the vagus nerve and limits oxygen flow, lowering your heart rate variability and pushing your autonomic nervous system toward a sympathetic stress state. You will make defensive, fearful decisions from this position. Now sit up, roll your shoulders back, open your chest, plant your feet flat on the floor, take a deep diaphragmatic breath. This opens the parasympathetic channel, the rest and digest state, increasing heart rate variability and signaling to your amygdala that the coast is clear. From this physiological state, you can access higher executive function. You can see opportunities. The alpha investor is not just a metaphor. It is a biological reality achieved through postural dominance. Before your next trade, check your body position. Are you curled in a ball of fear, or are you sitting like the chairman of your own future? Deep in the temporal lobe lies the hippocampus, the seat of memory and spatial navigation, but also the target of chronic stress. High, unrelenting cortisol levels literally shrink the hippocampus, impairing your ability to recall past market patterns, synthesize new information, and regulate your emotional responses. This means that a life of chaotic stress outside your investing is directly depleting your biological capacity to invest well inside the market. You cannot compartmentalize. The argument you had with your spouse, the debt collector on the phone, the leaking roof, these are not separate from your portfolio. They are a direct tax on your hippocampal volume. This is why the personal finance of the Grail is personal before it is finance. You must stabilize your life, heal your relationships, and automate your baseline survival needs to create a low-cortisol internal environment where the hippocampus can thrive and serve your analytical mind. Peace is not a luxury. It is a competitive advantage in the capital markets. The reticular activating system, a bundle of nerves at your brainstem, acts as the gatekeeper of your perception. You see what you are programmed to see. If you constantly consume content about economic collapse, market manipulation, and financial apocalypse, your RAS will filter the world to present you with constant evidence that the world is ending. You will miss the hundreds of bullish signals, the innovations, the hidden growth stories because your reticular activating system is locked on the fear frequency. To find the Grail, you must program your RAS intentionally. You must write down specific, vivid, present tense outcomes. I am a disciplined owner of high-quality cash-flowing assets. Read it in the morning, visualize it, saturate the filter. When you walk through the world, your brain will start to automatically detect opportunities, patterns, and people that align with that affirmation because the RAS is a servant that cannot distinguish between an external command and a deeply internalized belief. Command it wisely. Ultimately, the neurochemistry of the long game comes down to myelination. Myelin is the fatty insulation that wraps around neural circuits, and every time you practice a skill, reading a balance sheet, resisting a panic impulse, sitting with the discomfort of volatility, you are wrapping another layer of myelin around that specific circuit. Repetition is the carpenter of the brain's internal infrastructure. The investor who can calmly hold a crashing position is not a genetic freak. He is a heavily myelinated machine who has practiced the craft of emotional regulation 10,000 times. Your brain is plastic, not static. You are not born bad with money. That is a limbic escape clause. The Holy Grail is the process of deliberate myelination, the deliberate rewiring of your own financial nervous system through the pain of repetition. Every time you say no to a useless expense, you are not just saving $1. You are adding a nanometer of myelin to the delayed gratification circuit, making it faster, stronger, and more automatic for the next, larger test. So I leave you with this brutal truth. Your brain is either your portfolio's greatest asset or its most toxic liability. There is no neutral. Neuroplasticity is a relentless sculptor. The question is, are you holding the chisel, or are you letting the chaotic media landscape and your primal fears wield it for you? The market is simply a giant psychometric instrument designed to transfer wealth from the emotionally dysregulated to the emotionally disciplined. If you do not master this 3-pound machine, the market will master you, draining your account with the surgical precision of a neurochemical exploit. Will you start the hard, boring, unsexy work of biological restructuring? Or will you remain a stimulus response robot, predictable, exploitable, and broke? Say this out loud. My biology is not my destiny. I'm the programmer of my neural code. The silence of discipline in a world of noise. You are living in an age of informational toxic waste. The global economy of attention has been engineered by the brightest minds of a generation to trap you in a cycle of reactivity. Every notification, every breaking news alert, every hot take on interest rates or geopolitical tremors is designed to agitate your nervous system and cause a trading action. Why? Because a calm, passive, long-term investor is a nightmare for the brokerage industry that thrives on churn and the media industry that thrives on terror. The holy grail of investing is found in the discipline of shutting the hell up and doing nothing 99% of the time. You have been brainwashed to believe that activity equals productivity, that if you are not clicking, swiping, and reading, you are falling behind. This is the great lie of the information age. The truth is that the majority of your returns will come from sitting in silence, reading old letters from dead tycoons, and waiting for the fat pitch with the patience of a glacier. Your need for stimulation is a liability that the market will exploit. The discipline to be bored, to let the grass grow under your feet while the hyperactive lemmings run off the cliff, is the mark of the Grail carrier. Your morning routine is the foundation upon which this discipline is built or broken. If you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, you have surrendered your sovereignty to the hive mind within the first 30 seconds of consciousness. You are flooding a waking brain, still drenched in theta waves, with the cortisol-spiking garbage of Twitter and the curated envy of Instagram. How can you expect to make sovereign, independent, rational decisions about your retirement capital when your very first act of the day is to pollute your mental river? The practical habit of the Grail investor is a phone-free morning sanctuary. You wake, you hydrate, you breathe, and you read something written 100 years ago. You occupy the high ground of wisdom before descending into the trenches of real-time data. This is not a luxury for the independently wealthy. This is the minimum viable entry fee for anyone who intends to achieve independent wealth. You steal 1 hour from the noise and give it to silence. You say you don't have time. That is your amygdala lying to you again, trying to keep you in the drama of the urgent. You have time to scroll social media for 90 minutes a day, but you don't have time to read the 10K of the company that could build your children's inheritance. You are lying, and deep down, you know it. The discipline of time blocking is non-negotiable. You must look at your week and physically carve out, on the calendar, blocks of deep work where the phone is in a separate room, and the sole activity is the study of businesses. This is not just a scheduling strategy. It is a boundary against the world. It is an announcement to your subconscious that your financial future is a high-priority client, not a hobby. During these blocks, you are unreachable. The president could call, and you would return it after the block is cleared. That is the level of sacred commitment that separates the hobbyist who will die with a net worth of zero from the builder who owns the field. Let's confront the internal dialogue that destroys discipline. It is often a dialogue of self-negotiation. I'll do it after lunch. I'm too tired today. I'll start the strict budget on Monday. This internal dialogue is a sign of a fragmented psyche. There is the part of you that wants the empire and the part of you that wants the couch. These two parts are in an eternal negotiation, and like any negotiation where one party has unlimited stamina for deceit, the lower self will wear you down. You must stop the negotiation. You must become a dictator of the self. A dictator does not negotiate with a terrorist inside his own head. When the alarm rings, there is no debate. The motion is automatic. Feet hit the floor. You must wire in the implementation intention, a specific script that bypasses the conscious deliberation. The clock shows 6:00 a.m. I will walk to the kitchen and open my investment journal. No ifs, no buts, no dialogue. Just the execution of a pre-programmed subroutine. This is psychological aikido. You use the trigger to initiate an unthinking act, saving your limited willpower for the truly complex analytical work. The physical space where you work on your investments must become a temple of discipline. A cluttered space is a visual representation of a cluttered mind. I want you to create an environment that signals to your entire being that serious work is about to be done. A dedicated desk, clean, with perhaps a candle, a pen of weight, a notebook of quality, a computer that is used solely for wealth building, not entertainment. When you sit in that chair, your body begins to condition a Pavlovian response of focus. This is the practical application of context-dependent memory. Your brain associates places with actions. If you try to do deep research on the same laptop you watch trash videos on, The neural traces of distraction are too accessible. You are fighting a war against the inertia of your own history. Build a physical portal that signifies the entrance into the sanctum of capital allocation, and treat it with the reverence of a religious altar. The habit of journaling is not a soft, therapeutic option. It is a weapon of mass instruction in the war against noise. You must externalize your thoughts onto paper. When you are staring at a sea of red in the market, do not react on the screen. Open the journal. Write, I feel panic because my capital is decreasing rapidly. My body feels tense. The market is selling off due to specific event. However, my original thesis for ownership was thesis. Has that thesis been permanently impaired, or is this temporary? This act of handwriting slows down your cognition from the emotional limbic speed of milliseconds to the logical motor speed of seconds. By the time you have written the third sentence, the cortisol wave has often passed, and your system too has regained executive control. A trading log with emotional context is the cheapest therapist and the most profitable consultant you will ever hire. It reveals the patterns of your own self-destruction, page after page, and only in seeing the pattern can you break it. Physical discipline is a non-negotiable correlate of financial discipline. You cannot hate your body and love your future self simultaneously. These are not separate compartments. The act of forcing yourself to exercise, to lift heavy things, to sprint when your lungs burn, is a direct inoculation against the fear of financial discomfort. When you condition your body to endure physical stress and recover, you are building the psychosomatic infrastructure to endure market stress and recover. The pain cave in a workout is identical in its neural signature to the pain cave of watching your portfolio drop 20%. The investor who cannot run a mile without quitting will struggle not to sell a position at the bottom of a panic. The physical practice creates a reservoir of self-efficacy. Every rep completed is a vote cast for the identity of I am a person who does hard things. Stack enough votes, and the ballot box of your identity tips, and holding a volatile asset becomes just another hard thing you are fully capable of doing. Diet is the silent regulator of cognitive discipline. You are what you eat, but more critically, you invest how you eat. A blood sugar roller coaster of processed sugar and refined carbohydrates creates a reactive, impulsive, hypoglycemic brain. Volatility in your glucose translates directly into volatility in your decision-making. When your brain is starved of stable energy, the prefrontal cortex, your executive function center, goes offline and the lizard brain takes the wheel. The lizard brain is not a value investor. It is a panicked impulse trader. The Grail investor eats for cognitive endurance. Slow-release proteins, healthy fats, and the discipline to stay well hydrated are not trivial health tips. They are fundamental risk management protocols for the portfolio manager of a family's wealth. You would not put contaminated fuel into a Formula One race car. Stop putting poison into the most complex biological machine in the universe, the one that determines your capacity to compound capital. You must create a stop-doing list. Your discipline is not just about what you add. It is about what you mercilessly cut. There are activities, acquaintances, and commitments that have a negative net present value in your life. They drain energy without contributing to the vision. The discipline to say no is a competitive moat. When you say no to the poker night that leaves you tired and broke, you are saying yes to the sleep that allows your brain to function the next day. When you say no to the news cycle that screams about impending doom, you are saying yes to a clear, unbiased lens. Look at your calendar and your banking statement for the last month. Circle everything that did not appreciatively add to your net worth or your net cognition. Those circles are the leaks in your discipline ship. Patch them mercilessly without apology. Ultimately, silence is where the alpha lives. In the silence of the early morning, before the rest of the world has woken up to beat the drum of fear, you can hear the quiet, rational voice of your own analytical mind. The financial grail is not on television. It is in the silence between the headlines. It is in the dusty back pages of a regulatory filing that no one is reading because they are all watching the screaming man on the business channel. You must fall in love with the silence, the boredom, the deep, unyielding work of reading that which is dense and unstimulating. This is your edge. The market is a device for transferring wealth from the noisy to the silent. Are you ready to cancel the noise of the world and listen only to the quiet hum of compounding logic? Say this out loud. Silence is my edge. My wealth is built in the quiet. No one else can stand the alchemy of pain into portfolio now. We must descend into the inferno. This is the part of the journey where the scenery changes from the clean, well-lit offices of brokerage houses to the mud and blood of real life. You cannot separate your investment returns from your human experience. The losses you suffered in childhood, the rejection you faced in your career, the heartbreak that shattered you at 25, these are not extraneous biographical footnotes. They are the raw, unrefined ore of your future wealth. The holy grail of investing is, at its deepest level, alchemy. It is the transmutation of your suffering into your security, the conversion of your pain into a portfolio. Most people are crushed by the weight of their trauma. They become defensive, brittle, and terrified of risk. The Grail investor, however, builds a blast furnace in their chest and shoves their pain into it, using the heat to forge a resilience that the comfortable and the cushioned will never possess. You have been hurt, and that is your advantage. When you walk into a room for a business negotiation, when you stare down a market crash, you are not just bringing your intellect. You are bringing the sum total of every punch you have ever taken in life. If you have been knocked down and got back up, that is a stored reserve of psychological capital. Think back to the moment you felt most betrayed, the moment the world seemed to collapse and you survived it. That survival is a data point. It is a proof of concept that you are anti-fragile. Every time you tap into that memory, not to ruminate in victimhood, but to remind yourself, I survived that so I can survive a drawdown, you are leveraging experiential collateral. Your past pain, when reframed, becomes the margin of safety in your emotional portfolio. The person who has never failed is the true risk because they are untested, and the market will test everyone eventually. Rejection is the chisel of the sculptor. You want to know why you haven't started that business, why you haven't asked for that raise, why you haven't pitched that bold idea. It is the fear of a two-letter word, no. You have given a small, monosyllabic sound the power to stop your life. You are terrified that if someone says no, it will confirm a deep, unhealed wound of unworthiness. The Grail path requires you to decouple the word no from your identity. In sales, in capital raising and investing, no is simply a directional signal, meaning, not this path, not now, not this person. It is a pivot point, not a stop sign. You must desensitize yourself to rejection. You must go out and seek no's for breakfast until the word loses its emotional charge. Call up 20 property owners and make lowball offers. Pitch a service to 50 strangers. Ask for a discount on everything. You will be amazed at how quickly the sting evaporates. And when the sting evaporates, your agency explodes. Conflict is a currency. You have been conditioned to be polite, to smile, to smooth over friction. But friction is where value is created. When you are in a boardroom or reviewing a contract and you feel that knot of conflict forming, your instinct is to cave, to compromise, to preserve harmony. This instinct is costing you millions over a lifetime. The person on the other side of the table is not your friend in that moment. They are a counterparty with opposing financial interests. You can be ethical and firm. You can be a complete gentleman while refusing to yield a single inch on a valuation. The ability to sit in the heat of interpersonal conflict, to maintain eye contact, to repeat your position calmly while the silence stretches and the pressure mounts, is a superpower. This is not aggression. This is assertion anchored in self-worth. Your portfolio size is directly correlated to your ability to endure awkward, tense, high-stakes conversations without cracking. Let's talk about the psychology of envy, that green-eyed beast that gnaws at your stomach when you see an acquaintance post about their new penthouse or their early retirement. Envy is a poison that corrodes rational decision-making. It pushes you into trades you don't understand, assets that are overvalued, and leverage ratios that are suicidal, all because you want to catch up. You must neutralize envy by transmuting it into analysis. When you feel that pang, stop and ask, What specific skill or asset did they acquire that I have not yet acquired? What can I learn from their journey, regardless of their character? By intellectualizing the emotion, you cool its destructive heat. Furthermore, you must understand the difference between a balance sheet and a lifestyle. The person posing by the luxury car might be a tire kicker, deep in debt, drowning in anxiety. You, in your modest paid-off sedan, stacking away 70% of your income into a quiet, compounding machine, are the true king. Compare yourself only to the version of yourself you were yesterday, and ensure that you, not your ego, are winning the race. The real world is messy. You will face job pressure, the soul-crushing drain of a boss who undervalues you, a salary that undercuts your potential, and the fear that quitting a steady paycheck is an act of insanity. The Grail is not built by reckless quitting. It is built by strategic bridging. You use the job pressure as a fuel source. You view the oppressive boss not as a tyrant to be resented, but as a free character-building course in resilience. Meanwhile, you build the portfolio in the dark. You are a spy in enemy territory, collecting a paycheck from the corporation while your real wealth is constructing a lifeboat outside the system. This parallel track existence is mentally exhausting, but it is the most certain path. The exhaustion is the price. The fear of public speaking, the fear of presenting your ideas to capital allocators, is directly holding back your network and your access to funds. You must join a speaking club. You must record yourself. You must embarrass yourself repeatedly until the neural pathway of stage fright is worn down and replaced by a pathway of commanding presence. Your ability to articulate a vision is leverage. You cannot delegate your voice. You must develop it in the crucible of discomfort, the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. This is the ultimate binary. You are going to experience pain in this life. That tax is non-negotiable. The question is, which pain do you choose? The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. The pain of discipline is waking up to study. Regret is waking up at 65 realizing you can't retire. The pain of discipline is saying no to the impulse purchase. Regret is facing a medical emergency with no liquidity. You must tattoo this into your decision-making process. When the alarm rings and the body aches, ask, which pain do I choose today? By choosing the micro pain of discipline right now, you are systematically avoiding the macro pain of catastrophic regret in the future. This is the logic of the Stoic investor. You are willing to bear the present tension because you have a vivid, visceral, almost sensory image of the future you are building. You will lose money. I will say it again. You will lose money. The market is a probabilistic machine, not a deterministic one. You can make the absolute right decision with the information available and still lose capital. This is the most profound psychological hurdle. If you cannot accept this truth, you cannot invest. The pain of a loss will either educate you or eviscerate you. Your task is to frame losses as research costs. A great value investor once said that the market is a voting machine in the short run and a weighing machine in the long run. Your pain in the short run is the cost of admission to the long run weighing. Do not fight the losses. Log them, breathe into them, extract the lesson, and remember that the only real, permanent loss is the lesson not learned. If you sell your stocks at a loss but gain a decade of wisdom in risk management, you are actually in profit on a holistic scale. This is the alchemy, turning the base metal of a financial loss into the gold of a behavioral rule. Forgive yourself. You are so brutal to yourself. You hold onto the trade that went wrong 5 years ago as if it defines you. You replay the missed opportunity, the crypto rally you missed, the property that went up, and you flagellate your own soul. This self-hatred keeps you in a low-frequency state, a frequency of scarcity. You cannot attract new opportunity when your mind is anchored to the ghost of past mistakes. You are not a bad investor because you missed a 10-bagger. You are a human being with incomplete information. The Grail asks you to set down the stones you are carrying. Look at your past financial failures, say to them, "Thank you for the lesson, I release you," and walk on, lighter and more agile. The man with the lightest baggage can sprint fastest toward the new trend. Do you have the strength to forgive yourself, or will you remain chained to a ghost that doesn't even exist anymore? Say this out loud. My pain is the furnace where my future fortune is forged. I own the heat and I direct the eternal compounding of being. We arrive now at the summit, or rather, the infinite plateau. The holy grail of investing is not a destination. It is a state of being. It is the eternal compounding of character. You have been told to invest your money, but you must finally understand that your money is merely a dim shadow of your energy, a token of the value you create for other human beings. The primary asset, the one that pays dividends in contentment, clarity, and coincidentally, currency, is your consciousness. The Grail is the realization that the inside dictates the outside, that the portfolio is simply a printed receipt of your relationship with reality. You cannot game the system. You can only become the person for whom the system is designed to work. The market does not punish the greedy and reward the humble in some mystical karmic revenge. It simply rewards the rational, the patient, the emotionally sober, and the relentlessly curious. You must commit to the process of continuous learning, not as a task, but as a way of breathing. When you walk through the supermarket, do you see a shelf of products, or do you see a museum of business models, inventory turnovers, and consumer psychology? When you talk to a small business owner, do you hear a complaint, or do you hear a lesson in overhead, labor, and local regulation? The Grail mind cannot turn off the learning lens. It is a curse and a gift. You read everything. You read biographies of industrialists who are dead 100 years, not for stock tips, but for patterns of human nature that never change. This interleaving of historical wisdom with modern application creates a latticework of mental models. When you look at a modern tech company, you see the echoes of the canals, the railways, the telegrams. The names change. The frequencies of greed and fear never change. Your edge is your polymathic curiosity. The compound effect of your environment is relentless. If you hang around the 4-minute mile of thinking for long enough, you will break through. This means you must physically relocate your body, at least periodically, to surround yourself with people playing the game at a higher level. You must buy the conference ticket that you cannot really afford, not to network desperately, but to soak in the unspoken assumptions of success. You will notice that truly wealthy, Grail-carrying individuals rarely talk about ticker symbols. They talk about incentives, mispricings, and time horizons. Being in their physical proximity reprograms your reticular activating system. You realize they are not gods. They are simply operating on a different set of default programs. Your task is to hack those programs and install them into your own operating system. And proximity is the fastest peer-to-peer file transfer protocol. Your physical body is the vehicle that transports the Grail. It is cliché to say you can't pour from an empty cup, but you are trying to build a skyscraper on a swamp. You must sleep. You must treat sleep as a non-negotiable hard asset class. The myelin that wraps your brain circuits, the cerebrospinal fluid that washes away the amyloid plaques of the day's toxic noise, requires deep, slow-wave sleep. One night of 4 hours of sleep, and your amygdala's reactivity to negative news jumps by 60%. You will panic sell on a sleepy brain. You will miss the nuance in a contract on a fatigued nervous system. The Grail investor often goes to bed early on a Friday night, while the masses are out blowing their paychecks on overpriced cocktails. They are cultivating the neurological advantage. A rested mind sees the obvious escape route that a tired mind perceives as a dead end. And so we arrive at the ultimate asset, your word. Your integrity is the bedrock of your internal credit rating. When you tell yourself you will wake up early and you fail, you are writing a subprime loan in your own psychological ledger. Enough of these defaults on the small promises to yourself, and your self-trust collapses, and the credit market of your own willpower freezes up. But every time you keep a promise to yourself, you pay a premium that strengthens your self-concept. This is the accounting of the soul. The man who says he will do 10 push-ups and does 10 push-ups is strengthening the integrity muscle. This muscle flexes in the market. It flexes when you're tempted to renege on your investment policy statement. The world will constantly tempt you to betray yourself for a quick gain, a shortcut, a one-time exception. Do not violate your own code. Your relationship with your own word is the Holy Grail. It is the one thing that, once broken, decays, all other returns exponentially. As you leave this space, I want you to understand that there is a version of you 5 years from now who has either internalized this script or has forgotten it and is still scrolling, still searching, still waiting. The difference between those two versions is not intelligence, it is not luck, and it is not inheritance. It is execution. It is the willingness to close this file and immediately, without ceremony, do the one thing you have been avoiding. You know what that one thing is. It is the difficult conversation, the account opening, the book reading, the alarm setting. The Grail does not reveal itself to the seeker who only seeks. It reveals itself to the builder who builds. You are the investment. You are the return. The time for theory is over. The market will open tomorrow, and it will be indifferent to your excuses. Go and forge your Grail in the unforgiving fires of the real world, because no one is coming to save you, and the truth is, no one needs to. You have everything you need right now. The Grail is in your hands. Say this out loud. I am the asset, I am the return, and my time is now.